welcome back. In this tutorial, we're going to learn about how to play with cameras in Unity. So we'll start off with a little bit of an introduction, but we're going to get much more advanced and focus on doing multi-camera angling as well as get into Cinemachine. We'll do a little bit of a recap of character controller because we're going to require a character controller to have a camera follow our character. So let's get into it and create a fresh new project. I'm going to use Unity 2019.4 to do this. I'm going to call it M2 cameras and give it a home. All right, so now that we have our Unity project set up, what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a free asset from the Unity store called Unity Chan. We're going to use that character. So I'm going to open up Asset Store. And again, you can always go to Window and find Asset Store right here for you to open up. So we're connecting to the Asset Store. And I'm going to search for Unity. Try that again. Oh, there it is, my first result. I'll type it again. There it is, Unity Chan. That's what I'm looking for right now. And you can see the Unity Chan is a anime character. There it is, actually, it wasn't the first hit. It's an anime character, 3D. That we can use for free. So you can see there's a little free there. I've already quote unquote purchased it. So I'm just going to click on it and download it. All right, you can scroll through and see what it's all about later. I'm going to click install when it pops up, or import rather. All right, and so what we're going to do is hit import. Let it bring it all in. All right, so now that we have Unity Chan downloaded and installed, let's go ahead and take advantage of starting to use it. But before we do, let's see what was actually downloaded. So we have a folder called Unity Chan. It has Unity Chan model. It's got different areas like art, audio, documentation. So you can actually go furthermore. There's like a voice, artwork, so animations, right? And you can even see, you can actually use these animations to your advantage for whatever you want to use. And there's the prefab, which is what we're going to take advantage of in this case. So we're going to use the prefab in a moment. But right now, let's look at our scene. Okay, so we got a scene here. And what I want to do is I want to put down a plane. So I'm going to go over to Game Object, 3D, pull out a plane, and it lays one down on the ground for me. I'm going to stretch it out to be 1,000 by 1,000. All right, so very large plane there. All right, and I'm going to actually move the position. There's a reason for this. I'm just going to do a 0.44 for the X, negative 3.8 0.819 for Y and 2.65 for Z, just the numbers that I came up with. So I'm going to use those. I'm not going to dress up my plane just for this exercise, just let it be. Now I want to drag and drop Unity Chan. So I'm going to take Unity Chan and just put her somewhere there. And I'll just hard code the value. So first off, I want to scale it to be 10, 10, and 10. There we go, much better, so we can actually see her. I'll leave her in the traditional T-pose. I'm not going to play with animations today. I'm focusing on cameras, so her in the T-pose is good enough. Positioning, I'm actually going to move her to be negative 0.5, and the Y will be negative 3.8, and the Z will be 22.7. All right, so there she's exactly where I want her. All right, if I click on main camera, there she is right there. Okay, exactly where I want her. Now she's not connected to the camera at all or anything of the like, but she's in the view of the camera, which is where I want her to be. All right, so that's perfect. Now, what I want to do is start by playing with cameras themselves. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 more cameras. All right, so go to Game Object and Camera. I'm going to name this camera to be Side Camera. All right, and you can see it's actually kind of placed it on the ground there. I've already come up with some numbers for this exercise, so I'm going to pop those in. So you following along can do the same thing. I'm going to do like a negative 32.804. Y will be 51.612.4, and Z will be 35.5257. All right. I'm going to change the rotation. So the rotation will be 35.875, and Y will be 90. Z will stay where it is. All right. So now we can see where the camera is. This is our starting point. Maybe I'll just want to see where the camera is. And okay. So we also need to adjust a few other things. So looking at the camera itself, you can see what the camera settings are. So you have a skybox setting. So clear flags, what clear flags is all about, as you can mouse over, we can tell you, is what do you want to render behind it? That's in a nutshell what you're saying here with this camera. We can use a skybox. I don't have a skybox set up. That's for a totally different discussion. You can use a solid color, or depth only, or don't clear at all. Have nothing behind it, not care about it. All right, so that's those are your options for clear flags. But what I want to do is I want to change a couple of settings. So field of view, I'm going to drop it to 22. There. So 22. And in terms of clipping planes, they're fine. Depth looks fine. I'm going to move it a little bit. Actually, I might make some adjustments here. All right, so we're going to deviate a bit from the numbers I've specified and just rotate it a bit more. There. I want more of a side profile view. All right. All right, so we have there our side camera. Okay, I'm going to add another camera. All right, this will be, so go to Game Object Camera, and I'm going to call it Rear Camera, but it will be with respect to a little bit of a different perspective from what it is now. So it's not going to be, we already have like the other camera facing rear, so we're not going to be doing that here. We'll adjust the Uh, we'll adjust the look of it accordingly. So position will say X will be 0, Y will be 44.2124, and Z will be 50.8257. Now you can always adjust accordingly. Rotation will say 48.9. All right, looks like we've still lost Unity Chan here. I'm going to change the field of view to be 37. All right, and oh right, Y is 180. Forgot about that. There we go. There's Unity Chan. Okay. In terms of this, I'm gonna adjust it a little bit more and rotate, or actually zoom a bit more. Maybe I'll change the field of view. Let's bring it in closer. All right, so you can see here we have 3 cameras in total. So this is the rear looking camera, and you can see here this is the side camera, and then main camera is pointed right behind Unity Chan. All right, and so now we can work with this. Actually, I want to make a slight change to Unity Chan's positioning. I want to rotate her 180 degrees. So I'm going to have her facing the other direction. Right, that's better. So Unity Chan will be facing 180 degrees, facing the other way. Now, when I say rear camera, I'm actually facing the rear side. I'm facing her right side, and main camera is facing her directly. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to create a controller script that will flip between cameras. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch to project, and under assets, I'm going to create a new folder, call it scripts. And within scripts, I will create a new C# script. So I'll say plus, and there's a C# script. I'm going to call this camera controller script. All right. Now, let's let Visual Studio launch, and we're going to put this into, we're going to put this to work and edit it. All right, and so inside a camera controller script, what we're going to do is declare a couple of variables first. I want to have an array of cameras. So, and I'm going to drag those cameras right into the Unity Editor's inspector. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say public camera, use square brackets to indicate an array, and say cams. All right, and then I'll say int camnum, put a semicolon in there. And in fact, when we do the start of the script, I'll set camnum to 0. All right. You could have just set it to 0 directly. It wouldn't have mattered. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a method for switching cameras. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say void set cams. All right. And what I'll do is every time this method is entered, we're going to increment the camnum, which will be the index of the array that should be showing the camera at that moment. So I'll say camnum plus plus. If it goes over the length of the array, we should reset back to 0. So I'll just say if camnum is greater than or equal to cams.length, then camnum equals 0. All right, so that covers our bases there. What we're going to do now is we're going to disable all cameras and then enable only the one that camnum is numbered for. So we'll use a for each by saying for each camera C in cams. We'll say c.enabled is equal to false. And then finally, outside of this for each loop, we'll say cams of camnum dot enabled cams.camnum.enabled equals true. All right, so that'll be our set cams method. Now, how will we use it? We'll use this every time the user hits the C key in our keyboard. We'll do that inside update. So inside update, I'm going to say if input.getKeyDown for keycode.c, then we'll call setCams. And that's it for our script. So now what we want to do is incorporate this script into our game scene. So I'm going to save this, and I'll just minimize it because we'll need Visual Studio in a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a game object, an empty one, for this script. So now let's add an empty game object. I'm going to call this game object camera controller. All right. And in fact, what I'll do is I'm going to drag a little bit higher, just below camera, just for organizational purposes, no other serious reason. And I'm going to drag side camera and rear camera into it, just to keep it organized. At least it's grouped together with cameras. Maybe I could move main camera into it, but I'm going to let that be for now. Within the camera controller game object, I'm going to add a component. Search for camera controller script. There's an actual camera controller script object there. I don't want to get it mixed up with that. I'm just going to stick to camera controller script, the one we created. And you'll notice that we already have a variable called cams. When I expand it, I'm going to set the size to 3. And so now I have 3 cameras here. I'm going to drag main camera as element 0. I'm going to drag side camera as element 1. And I'm going to drag rear camera as element 2. All right. I think we have enough to run here. So I'm just going to hit the play button. I'll switch the game tab open there. I'm going to hit play. And let's run this. All right, so by default, you're seeing the Unity Chan UI menu, and the purpose of this was built into Unity Chan's prefab to demonstrate the different poses. I'm focused mostly on camera switching, so I'm going to hit the letter C, and you're going to see the different angles for which we created the cameras for. So you can see Unity Chan in these different angles. And just keep pressing C over and over again, and you see it's looping through the same 3 cameras. All right, so this was a walkthrough of how to have multiple cameras going, multiple camera angles. Now, the next step is for us to look into how we can actually add another camera and do something called a minimap, right? The next step I want to do here is actually have a top-down view of Unity Chan and have it in the corner here. So I'm going to actually replace it here with what's called a mini-map. Mini-maps are nice because they allow for you to have sort of a menu or a map type view. So you may notice in games you might have like a little map on the side with like dots indicating you and other characters in the game. We'll do something similar to that, but we'll just do a live camera view of Unity Chan. So what I'm going to do first is stop the playback, because we want to make sure we always stop. Otherwise, whatever changes we make will be horrible because they'll get erased. So we want to make sure that's off. I'm going to add another new camera. And it's also game object camera. I'm going to call this Minimap Camera. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to place Minimap Camera right above Unity Chan. I already have numbers that I'm going to hard code right into this, so to save us some time. So I'll say 0.7 and 87.04 and 38.6. All right. Now the rotation will just be for X to be 90. And there you can see a top-down view of Unity Chan. In fact, I might zoom a little bit more, and I might play with this a little bit later. Let's just see. There. So I'm playing with the numbers a little bit, just because I want to get a better view of her. There we go. Okay, good. So now I have this other camera called Minimap Camera. I'm going to drag it into my grouping of cameras under Camera Controller, but I'm not going to add Minimap Camera to my script. I'm going to let it be separate. Okay? So what I want to do now is I want to have it set up so that this camera view is actually in my bottom corner over here, right? But still have the other camera views be dominating the screen itself. So what I want to do is I need to add something called a render texture file, right? It's going to render, it's going to be a texture that we're going to place on our UI, on our canvas that is, so that it renders the camera view to this image. So what I'm going to do is switch to project, and I'm going to create another folder. It's a new folder. I'm going to call it textures. And within textures, I'm going to add a new file. So assets, create, render texture file is what I'm looking for, or render texture, that is. And I'm going to call this Minimap render texture. All right, so I now have Minimap render texture. What I'm going to do now is switch to back to Minimap Camera, and I'm going to drag Minimap render texture to my target texture. All right, so now this texture will now be part of the camera. The camera will project or render onto this texture. Okay. So now what I need to do is add a canvas, because I'm missing a canvas here, because the canvas handles UI related components, and I want this to be a UI item. So I can do it in 2 steps, but I believe I can do it in 1 step and just save myself the headache of adding a canvas and then adding a raw image after. If I add a raw image, it should automatically create the canvas for me. All right, and you can see that it already automatically created the canvas and the raw image right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hard code the values that I want for this item. All right, so I have here position. Well, I think it'd be easier just to anchor it to the bottom corner. Let me just have a look here. I believe it's in the bottom corner. Yep. So it looks like I don't have to do any more adjustments, actually. I think it's all there. Perfect. So you can see here that these white lines here represent my canvas and my UI essentially. And this white box here represents the raw image. All right. So now all I have to do is under texture, also drag Minimap render texture. All right. And you can see here, there you go. We now have the camera view right here. All right. In fact, we can run it to verify everything's up and running. All right. So we have it's actually there, but it's covered up by this UI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the UI. I'm going to open up Unity Chan, and I know that it's actually idle changer and face update. I'm going to hide the two scripts here. There we go. So now we can actually see it's here. I know it blends into our plane, but you can see the camera view at least. All right. And if I switch camera views, you can see it's more prevalent here in this look. And in this look. All right. So we now have a fourth camera that is our top-down menu camera that allows us to get a more of a top-down feel for this. All right. This leads us into the next aspect of this tutorial, where we're going to use Cinemachine to follow this character around. But before we do, we have to get the character to move around in the first place. So the first thing we're going to do is highlight Unity Chan. I'm going to scroll up to the bottom, and I'm going to add a component called Character Controller. So there's Character Controller right there. Has a bunch of features related to moving the character around. I'm going to leave the default settings as is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new script. And I'm going to do all of my movement controls inside that new script. Oh, first, I should have actually hit stop. And yes, as I suspected, I have to actually re-add character controller. Luckily, I didn't get too far into this, so I'm just going to hit add component. There's character controller. Again, make sure you stop playback. Otherwise, you lose stuff. You lose your changes. So there's character controller right there. Now I'm going to create a new script to perform my movements. So I'm going to go back to project, click on scripts, and add another C# script. I'm going to call this script character mover. And I'm going to double click on it to open Character Mover in Visual Studio. And what I'm going to do is first declare a private variable that depicts our character controller component. So we'll say private character controller, call it char control. And inside start, I'm going to request access to the character controller component that we have inside Unity Chan. So char control equals get component, call it character controller, right, and close off our brackets. So now we have access to the character controller component of Unity Chan because we've attached character mover to the Unity Chan object. Or we will actually add character mover to the Unity Chan object, or the character. Now inside update, we're going to be constantly checking for the status of character controller. All right, so I want to get the horizontal and vertical values of the movement. So I'm going to say float horizontal equals input dot get axis raw for horizontal, and float vertical equals input dot get axis raw for vertical. All right. Now I'm going to calculate the direction it's going to be moving in using a vector 3. So vector 3, because we're in 3D space here. Call it movedir equals, open a bracket, say horizontal times transform dot right plus vertical times transform dot forward. And I'm going to apply that move value to my character control. I'm going to say char control dot move, and we'll say movedir. And that's it. There are more enhancements you can make to fine tune the movements for character controller. But for now, this is the very basic of movement for the character. So we'll leave it at that. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to attach character mover to Unity Chan. So I'm going to do a Control S to save to be sure I've saved my file. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Unity Chan. So making sure Unity Chan is highlighted, we'll scroll to the bottom there, hit add component, and I'm looking for, well, actually character mover is like right here, but you can search for it again if you wanted to. There's character mover. And so now I've added character mover to my game. So now let's give this a run and see if Unity Chan moves. So I'm going to open the game tab, hit run. So the first thing I want to do is I want to uncheck face update and idle changer so we can actually get a better view here. Make sure I click on my game area. I'm going to use my left and right. And you can see with left and right, Unity Chan is moving around, right? And you can see the mini map in the bottom corner, Unity Chan is also moving. If I hit the letter C, let's get a different view. There's the behind view, right? So I know that Unity Chan is moving. Let's get a front view. All right, so there's the front view. I know she's a little bit high. I didn't adjust her to be lower. I probably should have, but that's okay. The idea was to illustrate movements in character and cameras as well in this case. So there we go. So yeah. Okay, so now that we have a map, a mini map of our character, top-down view, we're able to switch camera angles of Unity Chan. Now the last thing I want to do is if I'm moving, I want to be able to follow Unity Chan with a camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a feature called Cinemachine. Cinemachine is a built-in camera feature created by Unity to enhance and give you amazing amazing look and feel to your camera. All right, kind of makes you look like you're like some blockbuster Hollywood production. All right, that's the idea behind it. So you can actually do a lot of amazing cut scenes and cut angles and whatnot. But I'm going to keep it really simple for today. I'm just going to focus on getting it installed and then using it to follow your character. And you can have multiple looks and angles, and we'll see what those are in a moment. But the first step is to install Cinemachine. So what we need to do is we need to go to Window. But before then, again, make sure you end playback, because this will all be for nothing. Then go to Window and go to Package Manager. Might take a bit of time to load. And I'm going to search for Cinemachine. And there's Cinemachine. All right. The version I have here is 2.3.4. I'm just going to hit install. Let it do its thing. All right, so that probably took a little bit of time in your case, but once you're done installing Cinemachine, you can go ahead and X out the window for Package Manager, and you'll notice that we have a new menu entry here called Cinemachine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by bringing Cinemachine directly into the project by dropping down Cinemachine and saying create virtual camera. And it's adding a virtual camera called CMVCam1. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to position the virtual camera. I've already got some numbers hard-coded. I want to position it behind Unity Chan to begin with here. So I'm going to say it's going to be a negative 0.5 and 6.4 for Y and 44.4. Rotation will be at 7.145 and then 180 and 0, and scale is as it is. But the main thing to take away from the virtual camera is that you have here two properties, follow and look at. And we want it to follow Unity Chan. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag Unity Chan into both of them. So I'll drag it to follow. And I'll drag it to look at. All right, and you notice that as I drag to look at, this box appears. All right, and so now we have here a way to position and set our look and our feel. Now, if I hit main camera, you'll notice that main camera's preview shows it at the feet of Unity Chan. All right, and so this in itself, well, you know, it's a starting point. In fact, let's just run this and see if this is enough to see what happens here. All right, let me first off hide the menu items for Unity Chan. So I'm going to hide the idle changer, hide face update. I'm going to switch the camera to be the main camera. So I'm going to hit letter C. And there, this is our main camera. You notice that it's pointing at the feet of Unity Chan. All right. If I move Unity Chan, it's actually following Unity Chan. And you can see down here in the mini map, it has left the screen. All right, it's left the screen, so we know it's following Unity Chan. If I hit down or I hit backwards, I bring Unity Chan back into position. It's still following Unity Chan. All right, it's still following. Now it's great. I mean, we've got this thing up and running. This would be nice for a, you know, behind following footsteps sort of look and feel. You've seen those scenes in movies where you're following the feet of the actor. So this would be good for that, but really we don't want to do that here. We want to have it set up so that it follows Unity Chan, but from a rear angle, we see a lot of Unity Chan, basically her entire body be good. So let's make some adjustments here. So I'm gonna hit stop. So what I want to do is switch back to CMVCam1. And we're going to look at a couple more settings. Before we do, notice that main camera now has a new icon next to it. This signifies that Cinemachine is now attached to the main camera. So I can add as many virtual cameras as I want, have them in different positions. And the interesting thing, if I go to main camera for a second, is that a new object called Cinemachine Brain, a new component was added called Cinemachine Brain. Now, what is Cinemachine Brain? Well, basically, Cinemachine Brain is a feature, a component that, well, as the name Brain applies, it actually will look at your scene and it will switch between virtual cameras as needed. So it'll do the thinking for you as to which virtual camera to switch to. So if I have like a bunch of different virtual cameras, it'll switch between them to try and keep the character in focus. So if you have one in front, you could probably, after this exercise, is try adding a front one. So if Unity Chan leaves the screen, it sort of like switches to the next angle. All right, that's the idea behind it. That's the beauty of it. So that's Cinemachine Brain. But going back to CMVCam1, we have here a couple of features. One is body offset, and one is tracked object offset. All right, you can play with both of these to adjust it accordingly so it's not looking at the feet anymore. I already have some numbers hard-coded, so I'm going to pop those in, but I invite you on your own time to try and adjust these numbers on your own and see how they come up for you. You might find something better. So X will be 0 for body follow offset. Y will be 10.2. And Z will be negative 21.7. All right, and let's have a quick peek at the main camera. And you can see here, you see a bit more of Unity Chan, a little bit further back, more of an aerial type view. Let's go back to CMV Cam 1. And let's edit for tracked object offset. So 0 and then 7.48. All right, go back to main camera. You see more of Unity Chan. All right, and you can keep going, keep adjusting, keep tweaking to see more to your liking. I mean, there's more settings here like look ahead time, look ahead smoothing, and so on. All right, so you can play around with these as you feel and see how you might find a better way to adjust the look and feel. All right, I'm just gonna save my scene. So Control S to save my scene and then hit play. And let's see Unity Chan in action. All right, so let me just get rid of these menu items. So idle changer, face update, so that's our gun. Let me switch my camera angle by hitting C. There we go, we want the rear one. Now you can see the Cinemachine camera, the virtual camera looks much better. We get a better angle of Unity Chan. I'm gonna start moving Unity Chan here, and you can see she's still moving. I'm still following her. All right, I'm gonna hit back to bring it back into the minimap view. All right, so there's Unity Chan there. I'm gonna go left and right. Let's do left and right, so angular. There we go. Now we can see that Unity Chan is still maintaining the view, still moving around. All right, a couple of things you could try on your own for this exercise is to incorporate the animation. Right, get the walk animation going whenever you hit this the characters here. Another thing you can consider doing is having the minimap camera follow. Right, but then if we start having the minimap camera follow, this thing's never going to change. So it's something to consider as well when you're playing around, which is actually a good thing when you want the minimap you want the character not to leave the minimap area. I'm just leaving it like this so that you can see the minimap in action. Okay, so this is our exercise in cameras, going from the very basics, introducing the camera and seeing the basic features of it, to getting into camera angles, so having different camera angles, and then having an input binding so we can switch between camera angles by hitting the letter C. Then we introduced mini maps, so we had a fourth camera, a top-down camera, so we can look down from above and see what a mini map looks like, and then superimposing it into our UI as a raw image, and then also introducing, revisiting character controllers so we can get Unity Chan to move, and finally introducing Cinemachine so we can have a following camera, a camera that'll follow our character to wherever she wants to go. All right, so I hope you've learned a lot from the camera exercise here. Now it's up to you guys to try and expand upon this, play around with this project, grow it, see what you can do with it, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and bye for now.